Hi, I'm Chris Lee, and this is Virtually Speaking. Joining us today is Kenny Tedford Jr. Born almost totally deaf, partially blind, and with brain damage, Kenny has survived everything from cancer, heart attacks, and breaking his neck, and yet he's accomplished an enormous amount as a man of many talents: an author, an actor, a humorist, a life coach, a motivational speaker, a counselor, a teacher, a master storyteller, and an entrepreneur. He was told by his teachers, his counselor, and the Board of Education that he would never pass the third grade. He proved them all wrong by graduating with honors and attending Gallaudet University for the Deaf in Washington, D.C., and he later transferred to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, Tennessee, earning his BA in theater. Kenny went on to earn a master's degree in storytelling from East Tennessee State University and has served as the executive director of both the Tennessee Council for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing and the Communications Center for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. He also has worked as a career counselor and an employment specialist for the disabled, and was appointed as a Red Cross ambassador representing the United States. Kenny will inspire you with his storytelling ability, his sense of humor, and his strong faith, even in the face of adversity. He was shown by his life that even heart attacks, falling off a cliff, losing his parents at a young age, and cancer can be used for good. So please join me now with the incredible Kenny Tedford. Well, hello, Kenny Tedford. Thank you for joining me here today on Virtually Speaking. How are you doing today?
Hey, Chris, I'm doing great. It's an honor to be here.
It's an honor to have you here as well, my friend. I've been looking forward to this. It's been a great time getting to know you, a wonderful journey, just such an inspirational story that you have, and really one that people might take a look at and have some preconceived thoughts and some interpretations of what kind of person you're going to be, or what you're going to be like. And I think that people have a lot of labels for other people in this world, in our society, and you have certainly a lot of things that are true about you. You're partially paralyzed, you're blind in one eye, you're deaf, and you also have a learning disability because of a brain injury. And still, none of that has stopped you, and you've really accomplished a lot of incredible things and inspired a lot of people. And I
Thank you.
love telling people about you because it's just awesome to see how inspired they get and what the reviews are when people have heard you speak or when they read your book. A great book called 4 Days with Kenny Tedford, of course, that was written by Paul Smith, a great author, the author of Lead with a Story. But I'd love to start kind of in the beginning. I know that you were from a family of 9 kids, and
Yes,
your parents died when you were young, when you were 8 years old.
yes,
And
yeah.
in the third grade, you were told or in the second grade, you were told you were never going to pass the third grade. And of course, you proved them wrong. You graduated with honors. Then you attended Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. It's a university for the deaf. And then you later got a BA in theater, and you also got a degree in storytelling. Is that correct?
Yes, a master.
A master's degree in storytelling. So I
Yes.
didn't even know that existed. How do you get a master's degree in storytelling?
Well, I heard about it after my day graduation with my BA at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. People were contacting me, congratulating me on my graduation, and they said, "Why don't you come to Johnson City and get your master in storytelling?" And I thought, "What?" Yeah, and found out that East Tennessee State University is the only university in the world actually has a master's degree in storytelling. So I came to Johnson City and attended and graduated with great honor. Did great. I love storytelling.
Yeah, you are a great storyteller. So speaking of that, let's go back a little bit and talk about, your story. I mean, obviously that must have been a rough start to life for you. Your parents died when you were young. I think your siblings and you got split up, and 4 of you went with what was your mom's sister?
My father's sister.
Your father's sister. So tell us a
Yeah, she
little
was
bit
my
about
aunt.
so tell us a
Well,
little bit about what happened.
Father died a week before Christmas when I was 8, and he had a heart attack. And then 5 months later, my mother had an aneurysm, busted her, and she died in May. And so 5 months later, And then I was supposed to go to a mental health in the early 50s, people that are fostered with disability, especially the deaf, hard of hearing or blind. We go to mental hospital and you put like in a basement. And so I was ready to go. I mean, I was a little kid sitting on a suitcase with my shorts and a bow tie. And I was ready to go. And then my sister came running out. We're going to Memphis. We're going to Memphis, Tennessee. Why? I wanted to stay there to be near my parents, where they were buried. And so we took off to Memphis. And so four of us, two sisters and a brother and me. So two brothers, two girls. And then we all went to Memphis. And that's where I kind of grew up. And then went on past the third grade. I was told I would put, not to offend anybody today, but back then it was called retarded. I was labeled retarded. And so from the first, second, third grade to the fourth, I was already put in special education and labeled retarded and was told I never amount to anything. And I'll be like, if I passed the third grade, even my foster father would never have anything to do with me. He'll never hug me. He'll never say he loved me. All he ever did was just pat me on the head. And, and if I was a dog, I would have bit him. But anyway, I do love him. I do. We took us under his roof. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for keeping us four together, because my mother was married before and she had 5 children. But we don't say have brothers and sisters. That don't make sense. Which part am I going to get, the upper part or the lower part? So we're all one big family.
Yeah. And so, wow, that's an unbelievable start right there. And yet you always had this determination to win, and you always had a determination to prove everybody wrong and to achieve and to learn and to push yourself. This is something that's very consistent throughout your story. And then I know you fell off a cliff, right? And you hit your head.
No, I fell off a cliff and hit all my body. I was tumbling, it kept bouncing, and then my head hit the side of a rock. And then I didn't know until the next morning when I did kickboxing that my neck was broke and it would crack. And then when I went to kickboxing class, well, my roommate, we got in the living room, that's where I work out. And when he tried to swing his leg to hit me in the head, I turned. But if you know kickboxing, you have to move your whole body. But I just moved my head, not knowing my the neck bone, it was already cracked from the fall. And so it broke. It just broke, and I just fell to the floor, and I became paralyzed from my neck down. And they said, I'll never walk again. If I did walk again, I'll be working with a cane. But I'll prove them wrong in that too.
Absolutely. So at that point, you also got some brain damage that you didn't have before, correct?
Yes. Yeah. But I was born with the brain damage done when I was born. My mother fell down a flight of steps, and she was 7 months pregnant. And we were, she was rushed to the hospital and had one of those, they open up the woman's belly. I can't say it, and pull me out. And I always kid around that I'm holding on to a rib because I didn't want to come into this crazy world. And they had to keep joking me. But they put me in the incubator for about 2 months. And from that, I lost a lot of oxygen. Because the biblical cord, or what that cord called, would wrap around my throat, and I lost oxygen. So that's why all this stuff you mentioned, paralysis, legally blind, and deaf. And then when I fell off the cliff and hit my head, I had some hearing in my right ear, but then it became deaf because it hit it when I hit the rock.
Wow. So you just became even more deaf at that point.
Yes. I totally depend on lip reading, like what I'm doing with you. Some people are going to be, people's not maybe understanding deafness. You can say be deaf. I am deaf legally by the law, by the that line you do, So I'm legally deaf. So I learned speech. I took speech training for 6 years, and so nobody ever told me to shut up. I didn't learn sign language. I didn't learn sign language until I was 21 when I went to Gallaudet. I've never met a deaf in my life. And so I didn't know what deafness was. I just knew I was labeled retarded and slow. And even today, I think I have a rough time reading and stuff, but I would help a lot of friends and stuff. Mainly, I think my gift is really doing what I do now, performing and stuff like that, especially in comedy.
Yeah, it's amazing. You're hilarious, of course, and I do love telling people that you're an expert lip reader, and that, I've seen you in other interviews, and I've seen you, in action, and it's amazing from far away, or if somebody's looking down, you can still read their lips and understand. I mean, I don't think you really have ever missed a word. You've never asked me, what did you say, or can you say that again? It's pretty remarkable how good you are. Is there a field that people can go into like you, who are also um, great lip readers? Is that actually a job that you ever had for anybody else?
Yes, I could actually get a job as an interpreter for lip reading, meaning if another person, there's a lot of deaf out there also that don't
Yeah.
sign. Not all of us are the same. So if a deaf was at a convention and didn't know sign language, I can sit in front of him with aids. I have to, but I can't do it no more because I have to be looking at the speaker. So yes, we do have oral. It's called oral interpreting.
Amazing. So you also had some other interesting jobs over the years. Tell us a little bit about, I know you were an executive director for the Tennessee Council for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and some other similar jobs to that as well, right?
Yes, they all led one thing to another. I did job coaching and job career counseling. If you put it all together, 20 years. I did it 3 years, and I became a director for 6 years. I went back to job coaching. Then I became a director of a deaf center in Memphis. Then I became a director of the deaf in Jackson, Tennessee. And then I went back to job coaching again, which I loved it. I really enjoyed it. Then right before I graduated from high school, I got a letter from the National Red Cross in Washington, D.C., and they picked 2 people from each country of the world to go to a big conference from different countries of the world, and it's called the Friendship Tour. And so they picked one with disability, one non-disabled, and I was chosen for the disability. So I got to go to Norway and Switzerland.
Wow.
And London, and just got to meet people. And over there, I thought once I left America, I got over there, people quit laughing all the time at me. And then I got over there and they're laughing again. And they call me Gomer Powell. They said I talk, and I walked like Edmund Fudd, and I was like, I can't get away from that. So I realized then that's the gift that God's given me, to just make people be cheerful and happy and look at the good side. We all have good side. I really don't care what anybody says, So I've done that. And then I got into getting my master and became a storyteller, started traveling. I've done motivational talk with another friend of mine that's in my book. His name's Marty. And he quadriplegic, if I pronounce that right. He belonged to a straw. And he was, oh man, the day I met him, we hit it off. Like I met Paul, and just hit it off. And he was a wonderful young man. He passed away. He was in a car accident. But he taught me a lot. And so he belonged to a straw. And so sometimes we play games. He'd get behind the straw and talk to me. And I'm like, so I move my head so I can see his lip, but he'll move his head behind the straw. Will you stop that? And then I'll take a straw and move it. And so we performed together. We did motivational, and people were freaking out. 2 people making fun of each other. Oh my goodness. And so it was a great time with Marty until he passed away.
Yeah, that sounds like a great friendship. I'm sorry for your loss. And tell us a little bit more. This Red Cross job that you had. You were an ambassador for the Red Cross, and they took you to Europe. What was your job? What was it that they had you doing there?
Well, yeah, that was the title, an ambassador for the Red Cross. What it was, it's like I said, it's title. Every year, conference, you know about conference, they have a theme, and their theme was called the Friendship Tour. And so my role as a person with a disability, I got to speak to this big group from like 50 different countries. And it was they all knew English, but most of them were trying to understand me because of my speech. And they would tell me, a lot of people like in America, slow down, talk louder. And so I did, and I wound up, my job was basically teaching all the other countries what we do to people with disability, and meaning people with disability can work. So I introduced to a lot of countries that blind people can ride horses. And they were shocked. What? blind people or somebody on the horse with them? No, they're independent. They're out in the field riding a horse. They go, what if there's a wire that, like I think the tree line are pretty high, the telephone pole wire. And so I taught a lot of country deaf work. We don't just sit at home and sit in the rocking chair. We do great job. We have deaf lawyers, we have deaf doctors. There's a lot of wonderful deaf people who are doing career. And even in my field, we have deaf writers, we have deaf motivational speakers. But the thing I did basically was open the eyes of those countries to give them a job, because a lot of countries, when you're born with a disability, many parents would disown you and you live on the streets. And so it's a tragedy, but that's what my goal is what I do now, to get out there and teach people, we're all different, and, share a lot of the adversity that I have overcome. We could spend 3 hours together and it still wouldn't be enough. So that's basically what I was doing. I was educating, showing people that we're all the same. We're all the same. The only difference is I just can't hear you.
And tell me, that reminds me of one of my favorite stories that you tell, the story about the Magic Crayon.
That's basically how all that started, the book and all. When I was put in special education, I was already labeled. Even when I was in Dallas, the school would not let me go to a regular classroom with other kids until my parents, Kenny had to learn this way. Then went to Memphis, the same public school system said I couldn't do this, couldn't do that. And so one day, class started, I just went to Memphis in the second grade after my mother had died that following fall. And so there I was, treated special. And sometimes I would go crazy. Somebody called me that, like, you're special. It's the way you say it. You can say, hey, you're special, Chris. But when they look at me, he's special. And I'm going, why did you do it? But anyway, that's the one thing I teach people. Be careful how you say things. So the teacher passed out these little boxes of crayon. In my days, there was a little box, 24 crayons. And everybody Crayola, we call them Crayola, and you get a big yellow piece of paper. So she passed them all out. When she got to me, she took out only 3 colors: black, white, and gray. And I want the rest of the colors. You could, Kenny, you're retarded. You're not creative. You can't think of good things. Just draw with those. And then she walked off with a bunch of crayons. The other 21. So I went ahead and I love to draw. So I went ahead and drew pictures. And every 2 weeks, somebody would come in, and back then they're called counselors, but today they're like psychiatrists. And they study people who cannot communicate, people with speech problems. They want to make sure I don't draw a picture like a teacher with a knife in her back and because then they'll put me away or something. So I just drew pictures of a house, but everything was dark. So I made dark clouds. I made sure it's raining or snowing, So it was a black and white photo, you might say. And he thought, oh, the poor kid can't be creative at all, not realizing that that's only the color she's giving me. So I always got a D or a D minus, sometime an F. They give you grades and make sure I'm still normal, that I'm not going to kill anybody or, do something crazy. And so it just so happened after about 3 weeks into the class, a young boy in the front row raised his hand, and he turned around to look at me, and we were in a small classroom, so I saw somebody looking at me. So I looked at him and I waved, and then he looked at me and went, and then he looked back around to the teacher, and she wanted to, teacher scared you to death, like a ruler in your hand. And she said, what? She goes, I want to go sit back there with Kenneth. And she looked at the student, you can't sit back there. Why can't I? Because he's retarded. And the thing is, all the students had learned A, B, C, D, E, F, G, capitals, state, president. All I had to do was draw with a crayon. I had it made. I don't know what's wrong with y'all. I had it made. You can call me whatever you want. So when she said that, all the kids started waving their hands. And the teacher really got upset. What do you all want? And they all turned towards me. They turned back to the teacher. We want to be retarded like Kenneth. And I was like, yes. So I was accepted for that label, but not understanding what it meant 2 years later. So my point I'm just trying to make is, I'm an innocent child, not understanding what was happening, if I knew I was approved. So that's where a lot of people are today. They won't be accepted, somehow. So I got home, and my mother even asked me about the drawing. Why are they so brave? That I told her, she goes, "You're smart. You're not dumb. Don't listen to what they say."
Right.
So that afternoon, when the teacher told all the kids put their hands down, the kids decided, and you cannot, we can't be like him. I started feeling really bad. And so I left the class and I was walking down the hall, like carrying my backpack, dragging it.
Right.
And there's one teacher who always says hi to me. She was the cafeteria monitor. We had those in those days. She was the hall monitor. She greeted the kid coming into the school, say hi to the parents.
Right.
She's a wonderful, sweet lady. I wish I knew her name. I really do, but she wasn't my teacher. So she told me to come to her class. So I went. She said, "What's wrong? Why are you so sad?" So I told her the story I just told you about the teacher calling me retarded and dumb and never make it past the third grade, the counselor. And so she said, "Wait a minute." So she opened her cabinet and pulled out a box of Crayola 24 crayon, some of the paper, the yellow paper, rolled it up in my backpack, dropped the Crayola, zipped it. She goes, "You listen to me. You are amazing storyteller." She said, "When you describe something, you're hilarious. I love when you talk about lunch. You discuss it, talk about the smoke and everything. You just put it in detail. And you got she said, I'm saying this out of love. You got the goofiest face, but the funniest face any kid I've ever seen. You're going to be good when you grow up." So I didn't really understand a lot of that. I was just being kind of. And so I went to the park the next day, and I was sitting at the picnic table, unrolled the yellow paper, took out my crayon, and this butterfly landed on my shoulder, and it was just flipping, flapping, flipping, whatever you call it, butterfly. It was a yellow one, then a blue one landed on my hand, then another one landed on this arm with different colors. And I'm like, where in the world are these guys coming from? So I looked to my right, there's a bush. And I didn't know that until years later. There is a bush, a flower bush, whatever, that attracts butterflies. And that's where they lay their eggs and all that. It's a butterfly bush. That's what I call it. It was loaded with butterflies. Wow. And all of a sudden it hit me. It just hit me. So I started drawing a picture, finished, wrote it up, went to school one day. The counselor came in and sat next to me with the look like, okay, give me the picture. It's going to be another grade, picture. I handed it to him, he wrote it, and I'm watching him, his face, and his eyes are big, and he's looking at my drawing. He looks at me and looks at the drawing. Beautiful. I love the color. Is that a woman riding on the back of a butterfly? I looked at him. I go, yep. He goes, who's the woman? That's my mama flying around the room here. Make sure you give me an A. And he almost had tears in his face. He was just watery. And I realized I was making a difference just with a drawing and make it colorful. And that basically got me started. And I called it the Magical Crayon and the butterfly and the characters and my mama. And so I went home with a picture and she unrolled it. And I didn't see it till I got home. In the corner, he wrote a grade. He gave me an A+. And he said, keep up the good work. And so my mother started crying. She was boo-hooing. And she was hugging me and I go, Mom, guys don't like to be hugged by mama. But she's hugging me. And I said, Mom, and say, are you going to cry every time I do something good? She goes, yes, baby, I'm going to cry. I go, I'm going to quit doing anything good. She goes, you're not. So the beauty of it was, I'm now learning, realizing that I can make people laugh or smile. Yeah. I don't mean to bring tears, but if it does bring joy to you and you cry, amen. I mean, that's just I just feel like that's what I've learned from my father and my mother. And so I love working with all kinds of organizations. Like my mother was an alcoholic, my brother was an alcoholic, and drug. But he's my brother. I don't care what he does. I mean, that's the demon he had to wrestle with. I got my demon to deal with, and so that's basically what the story is of the Magical Crayon. I started realizing I can tell stories and make them colorful and talk about stories.
And you are a colorful man. I mean, you are a colorful person. You are just full of life and you're so optimistic. And when people come across you and see what you've, had to overcome and the different things that you've had that you've had to, get through. There's nothing but inspiration involved there. I mean, people are just touched and blown away. And I know in that great book, 4 Days with Kenny Tedford, you really told a lot of stories. You really told your whole life story. What was that process for you like, writing that book? Did you learn something new about yourself, or did you find a theme or a lesson that you really hadn't realized before in that process?
Yeah, it's not. Baby Frank, glad you brought that up. Of course, I met Paul. Paul really was moved, and he wanted to write the book. He said, "You need to put all your stories together."
Yeah.
He could send me a copy, and I'm going, Paul, I don't know technology. I know squat. He couldn't believe it. He thought, no, you're smart. You're pretty bright. Well, I may talk bright, but my brain doesn't connect with my lips. And he said, so he invited me to his home for 4 days, and I told stories. And believe it or not, it took almost 5 to 7 years for Paul to finish the book.
Wow.
It wasn't just 1 year, because Paul was also writing 2 other books.
Right.
And so we were communicating like you and I now. And back then, I don't know if June was around or not, but we FaceTime.
Right.
And Paul would, he like what you're doing, you're recording it. And then you have to maybe listen to it real carefully because of my speed, because my voice will go up and down. And you might, and so Paul put a beautiful book together with all the stories. As a matter of fact, the publisher couldn't take all the stories, there were so many. So They picked the one they really enjoyed. Excuse me. And I learned from this, telling my story over and over. I found myself being in the audience. I found myself telling a story, and I started crying, and I have a really, really trauma story in there that really I don't like talking about it, but I know people need to hear it. And so then I laugh now about my father throwing me in the lake. And so I look back, and so Paul is always telling me, I'm like, what's that guy with the box of chocolate?
Forrest Gump?
The movie? Yes. Paul would say, I've been told by counselors and psychiatrists that I have an inner child that never grew up. On the outside, I'm becoming old. I mean, 2 more years, I'll be 70, and I can't wait, but I feel like I'm 30. And so my point is, that inner child won't let me, become hurt. How you doing?
Right.
You want to go to the movie? I try to do it, and people keep laughing. They go, what is wrong with you? Even new people who just met me, they're telling another friend, what is wrong with your friend? They go, Kenneth, why are you doing that? Be yourself. And so I realized that's what I'm going to do. And so I love doing it. And so through the book, I've learned, my faith got bigger, I really deepened faith. And so I learned a lot about the story myself, looking back, and I became the audience. And I'm like, and even myself, I when I tell that over and over, I'm like, did I really fall off a cliff? I mean, did I just dream that? But I have there's a metal triangle in my throat. Now I had an x-ray to prove that I have a metal in my throat. So there's a metal here to keep my neck. I can't go back with my neck. And I have a new knee. I fell off a second cliff, got a new knee. So I destroyed my left knee. But it's a piece of metal in there, and it's really cool. It's like a ball, like this. Blah, blah, blah. So I feel like a robot, And so the thing is, when something happens to you and you have no control, it's not easy. I mean, it's tough. There's times I wanted to end my life 2 or 3 times, but God intervened. He always sends somebody, or he just intervened. And so life, until I'm old, if I live to be 100, my back getting old, my eyes are getting bad as I get older. It comes with age, but you know what? Hallelujah, I made it this far. My 2 sisters, my brother, the 4 of us, they all passed away in the last 10 years. So They all gone. So I'm the only one left for Tedford. And my parents gone, my grandparents, even my 2 foster parents, kind of like foster parents, my other cousins, they're like my foster parents, they're gone. And so I still have my other brothers and sisters from my mom, my first husband. And so I love them to death. They're in Texas and, and Memphis. And so I've come this far. And so there's a reason. And so I want to change lives. I want people to start loving it, especially right now, the time we're going through after the coronavirus. And you mentioned it, you bring in the beginning, labeling. Why do we have to have labels? I mean, I don't understand that. Let's accept each other. If you're ugly, and fine, hallelujah, let's go out to eat and get something,
Yeah.
But my point is, I'm just want everybody to just be yourself. If somebody don't appreciate you, then it's their loss. It's their loss. It's not yours. It's their loss. Because even if you describe me like all those things to anybody, there are people now saying, is he still alive? Yes. And so then when they meet me, they're going, I can't believe how funny you are. I mean, you're not mad, you're not angry. Yes, I have those moments, of course. When I realized I was paralyzed, never walk again, yes, I was angry. I put my fist at God. But he didn't strike me with lightning. So, so accept what you can't change. I mean, something happened, you have a flat tire, what do? You change the tire. If you can't, I can't even do that because I can't lift heavy stuff. So I get to call AAA.
So you said you were paralyzed, but I think you should let everybody know, and you couldn't walk, but I think you should let everybody know that's you can walk at this point. You're walking fine.
Yes, I was paralyzed for about 3 weeks, and then the feeling started coming back. I was paralyzed from my neck down, and then I started therapy, got back into kickboxing, and so I got back into everything. I love to run. I gained a lot of weight during coronavirus. I'm getting started a new program. I had to lose weight again. So
the Corona diet, I think they call it the Corona diet.
Yes, yes, I heard that. So I'll be doing that pretty soon because I'm starting a new journey. I'll be moving to Maryland, so I'm looking forward to that.
Well, Kenny, all I have to say is, there are so many stories, and you are so funny, and you are so a breath of fresh air, and you are so humble in all of your accomplishments and everything you stand for in life. But I mean, you are one of the most inspirational people I've ever met in my entire life. And I just have to say, I'm so happy I met you and that I get the chance to tell a lot of other people about you, because you're going to move people, you're going to inspire people, and you're going to educate people wherever you go. And that's what you've been doing your whole life. So I look forward to doing that with you more and more. And I'm so happy you joined me here today, and we got to get to know you even a little bit better. So thank you so much, Kenny, for coming on here.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It was an honor. I was looking forward to it, and I hope you have a great day.
We will. And it'll be even better now having had you in it. So thanks again, my friend. I will talk to you soon, and God bless.
God bless you.